Hello and welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton, and today's Daily Record is actually a request. So I'm excited to show the Pretenders and their self-titled debut album. Now this was released on January 7th, 1980, released on the Real label in the UK, but on Sire Records in the United States. And this album was a really, really great album because it was a mixture of just solid rock and roll. It had a little bit of a punk attitude, but also pop music. There were a few singles on this album, most notably Stop Your Sobbing, Kid, and the excellent Brass in Pocket, just one of my favorite songs. Now, Nick Lowe produced, I believe, the single Stop Your Sobbing, but he did not really want to work with him. He kind of thought the band was not going to go anywhere. So Chris Thomas took over and recorded everything else. And of course, Chris Thomas is one of the great rock producers. But the album ended up being a huge hit, despite what Nick Lowe thought. And people really took to it as an album. Now, Pete Farndon played bass, James Honeyman Scott on guitars, and Martin Chambers on drums. And, you know, Chrissie Hynde is an Ohio American, but the band was a British band. And so a lot of people associate the Pretenders as a sort of English group, kind of like the my British friends claim Jimi Hendrix and The Experience. It's one of those interesting combinations. But Chrissie Hynde wrote all of the songs. And I'll say something, as a young guy coming up on rock music, I kind of was raised under the assumption that rock and roll was a boys' game. I mean, you got to think late 70s, early 80s. But Chrissie Hynde really wore a guitar very well, still does. And you know, honestly, I think that Chrissie Hynde has done a lot for women and women's role in rock and roll music. She's done as much for it as anyone. And so I really have to give my hats off to Chrissie as sort of a pioneer. Those three singles are the sort of the most well-known songs. And so, but there's other songs on here too that are quite good. Tattooed Love Boys, Up the Neck, Precious. Just a really solid album and a solid debut album. This band is very sure of itself, very sure of its sound and where it wants to go. And Chrissie Hynde is a very well developed writer. Now, I did say, and I want to correct something, I did say that Chrissie Hynde wrote all the songs. Stop Your Sobbing actually is a Ray Davies song. So before anyone corrects me down below, I want to make sure that I do say that it was a Ray Davies song. But just a solid debut, one of the great debuts in the history of rock and roll music. And if you've never heard the Pretenders, this first album, it's a must-have. You got to have it, particularly fans of that sound. This is the beginnings of one of the great bands to ever release music. So that makes the Pretenders today's Daily Record. Thanks for the request on that. Anyone else that wants to request anything that I talk about, do it down below. I love the comment section. I try to interact with as many of you as you can. I love that. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. And also, please check out my regular channel, Tommy Burton's VC channel. In the meantime, I'll see you guys again tomorrow with another Daily Record.